What up, fellas? It's me. So, I got a comment that asks me something super important for all artists to know the answer to. How do you avoid burnout? Or, more specifically, how do you avoid burnout for when you're making comics? So, for those that are new to this whole concept, artistic burnout is generally the feeling you get when you really just can't continue to work on a piece or even get started on another drawing. It's like you want to create something, you know you need to, but you can't. And anytime you do, you feel your brain hurt and your entire being be deflated from just not being able to do it. Now, there's a difference between an art block, burnout, and just straight up not being motivated. And I just want to make that difference super clear before I kind of go into this topic. Art block is when you just have no inspiration, no idea what to do next. You have the pencil in your hand, ready to draw, but nothing comes out of it. Things like that can ruin your motivation to make anything for a long time. Generally, not being motivated is the side effect of a lot of these, but it's the act of just not feeling like you want to draw anything, just rather not. Art burnout, however, is when you are drawing a lot and you keep on drawing. Comics, for instance, is a really good example, drawing and drawing until, you reached your limit and you didn't take any breaks, you didn't let yourself breathe, and now you are just mentally, burnt out. You drew over and over again, and now anytime you try to draw again, it is just painful. It's like you're running and running, but eventually we can't all just run forever. Eventually, we get tired, and if we push ourselves too far, that running continuously can seriously hurt us. Burnout is just like that. You did way too much too fast, and now you basically have to let yourself heal back up before you go running again. Burnout is an insidious artist ailment that creeps in quietly and slowly wears you down over the course of time. It doesn't always present itself as a fried, frazzled, bag under ice type of affair. The worst kind of burnout, in fact, is subtle, allowing you to keep on plugging for much longer than you should be. Burnout is also a very serious thing in the art field. In the comic industry, our editors will tell us over and over again to take breaks, stay kind to yourself, avoid burnout as much as possible. The same thing goes for industry, like studio stuff. Burnout, by the way, does not only keep itself in art. Burnout can happen if you work way too many hours in a week, do too many stressful activities in a day, and your nerves just can't handle that pressure all the time. Eventually, you'll crash and face burnout. And of course, once you have burnt out, you can't really work. Or when you don't have a choice and you're forced to, you don't perform nearly as well as before. And most of the time, it gets in the way of your job, your life. It can ruin your career if it's bad enough. So it's always best to try to avoid it as much as possible. So how do you avoid burnout? Well, there's a lot of ways. I'm going to be listing my personal list, and these are just ways that things that I do that I do to avoid burnout. So with that, let's get started. Number 1, know your limit. This seems a bit of an obvious one, but it's also something that we really don't know much about ourselves. We don't really know ourselves as much as we think we do sometimes. What is our limit to the amount of work we put ourselves in, I know for me, 2 hours for drawing nonstop is my minimum mental limit. Maybe 4 at the most if I'm really pushing it and I'm feeling like super pumped and in the zone and inspired. But normally, try to keep it to like 2 or 3 hours at least before, any breaks or stretching occurs. I know my limit because I've timed myself by streaming. So I have a Twitch that I stream commissions with. On that Twitch streamer program is a timer, and it tells me how long I have been streaming for, like most streaming services do. Every 30 minutes or so, I look at the timer and mentally know how I'm currently feeling. I usually end the stream in about 2 hours or 3, because around that 2-hour mark is when I start feeling the itch. I recommend setting up a timer for yourself when you're drawing next time and just kind of keep track of when you start feeling like fatigued or you're feeling like that strain in your head. Like, I mean, in my opinion, a good way to, look at it is like, when does it stop being fun at drawing? Number two, stretch for at least 5 minutes per hour. It's super important when you're sitting down all day to stretch actively. It's even more important to focus yourself on moving around, maybe even exercising right before you draw or exercising even a little bit. Our human bodies are seriously not made to sit down all day, so it's important that we stretch so we don't end up with long term problems like back problems, neck problems, carpal tunnel, bad knees, you name it. Number three, do fun activities. Play video games. Do something. One of the most soul-sucking thing is when all you do is work. It's a very slippery sloper. You just work, 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 and you're doing comic pages after comic pages, just thinking to yourself, "Oh, I need to get this done," and you don't realize you're at your limit or way past your limit until it's too late and you literally can't pick up a pencil anymore. It's so important, outside of just stretching and knowing your limit. It's also important to spend like an afternoon or something playing like games or something, something that de-stresses you. Here's how I think about it, think of yourself like a sim from like the Sims game. If you ever played Sims, it gives you a list of what the sim or character you're playing is feeling. And if your character is far too stressed in the game, you get warnings and bad things all over the game telling you that the sim is way too stressed. They must de-stress by playing video games or dancing or even talking to others. And that, even though it's just a game and a life simulator, that's also applies to real life as well. You can't work if you're just way too stressed. Okay, that's the truth. Or at least you definitely can't do your best every single time. So think of it that way. You're trying to boost your fun meter up. As long as that meter for stress doesn't get too high, you're usually okay and are avoiding burnout in some capacity. I know these aren't a lot of tips, but I think just starting with these 3 tips in mind will help you tremendously with your life later on. I put some links in the description for some more in-depth ways to help with burnout issues if these don't really help. I also want to make a video talk about art block in depth similar to this next week if you're interested, but of course that's something for you guys to decide. Let me know what other videos you'd like me to make in the future. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, like, I don't